So our speaker tonight is January 19th, 2021. I'm very excited about our speaker tonight. I have had some great discussions with David Jonathan Ross, who is literally a world-renowned type designer. He designs typefaces. 2 years ago, he was awarded a very prestigious prize that is only given out every 5 years for someone who's made a significant contribution to type design. And I actually had lunch with him in Chinatown on his way to go and accept the award, which is very cool. He's not here to talk to us about type design, but something a little closer to the Python world. Python does get into the type design world, but that's a little esoteric and difficult to demonstrate. So we're not going to go, I don't know actually how far David's going to go into that. But I'm very excited for this talk. David is a Massachusetts native, but far to the west. So being physically in Boston is a little bit difficult, and we can take advantage of our all virtual world now and have him here virtually. He's sitting in a freezing garage with a fire going or something. We have to make sure
fire's not going well.
The fire's not going well. Okay, so we got to let him talk so he can get done before his nose turns blue. David, why don't you take over the screen, and I'll let you continue your introduction of yourself and your topic.
Sounds good. Oh, go ahead.
So let's just get the logistics right. So if there are questions, you can put them in the chat. I'll be keeping an eye on the chat while David's talking, and I'll either interject if it's something for clarity right there, or we'll put it off until a little bit later when there's a better break. Is that right?
Great.
Okay.
Yeah, so thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here. I can vouch for what Ned said. I really appreciated the back and forth that he and I had about this, about the content of this talk and the support he gave before this talk. And so yeah, I'm really grateful for it. And I hope you get something out of this. I'm going to share my screen. Oh, and I wanted to say about the about.boston Python website. I don't know if this is intentional, but the font designer of Merriweather, which is the font used here, is also a Massachusetts resident. He actually lives just up the road from me.
Really?
So yeah, well done on your font selection.
Thank you. It's Merriweather's a little wide for other places I've wanted to use it, but there was plenty of room here, so it worked out fine.
Yeah. Yeah, he lives in Shelburne Falls.
Nice.
Yeah, so anyway, you can all see my slides, right? I hope.
Yep. Postcard.
Great. Yeah, so as I also appreciate your expansive definition of Boston Python, because yeah, I'm out here. Yeah, it looks a lot like this, just a small town, but I like to put in a plug for Western Mass whenever I talk to Eastern Massers. So, you know, after this whole pandemic thing, we'd love to have you out here. It's a nice place. Yeah, I guess I'll start talking a little bit about myself. Everything I know about Python, I know because of fonts. And yeah, I'm a professional typeface designer, or as my mom likes to say, David likes to draw his ABCs, which is technically true. Yeah, so I spend a lot of my day, you know, drawing letter forms, drawing vector shapes like this. Yeah, I run a small type foundry on my own. It's just my initials, DJR. And yeah, I also run a Font of the Month club, which is kind of exactly what it sounds like, where people sign up between $2 and $6 a month, and I send them a new font every month. And so yeah, it's a nice way to kind of mix things up in my own design process. I work with other font designers through a collective called Type Network. I teach a font design class at Mass Art. And then I also teach a Python programming class at Cooper Union for their Type at Cooper program. And I'll get into that a little bit more later. Yeah, I mean, like the kind of fonts I make, I just kind of want to give you a little, like some of them are kind of goofy, ridiculous things, you know, kind of novelty fonts for display. Some of them are kind of more serious fonts, like for books or extended reading. Some are a bit of both. You know, this font is kind of more for editorial design or branding, so a company or an organization can have a consistent look to them. And I also do kind of specialty fonts. I actually designed a font for coding, which I mentioned to this audience because I figured it might be slightly relevant. And plus it's a free download, so there's that. Yeah, it's called Input. It's got a lot of weights, widths, and styles, so you can customize your editor. And yeah, let's see, what else do I have to say about fonts? It's interesting that pretty much all the main font design programs, like this is RoboFont, have a scripting window, and that scripting window is essentially always in Python. So once I started learning fonts, I quickly had to pick up Python just to essentially have an API to get at my font data. And so I love that I can quickly automate things. Font design has a lot of kind of repetitive tasks, and if I were to click on things manually, it would just take forever. So it's just great to have direct access to the font data, and to manipulate it not only with my hands drawing letters, but also with code. And this kind of allows me to make kind of more technically advanced fonts. Fonts today are not the same as fonts 20 years ago. They can contain all sorts of information, like the shapes within the fonts can morph, like from light to bold or from narrow to wide. Fonts can also contain color information. And yeah, the data just gets a lot more and more complex, and the more complex it gets, the nicer it is to be able to script in my fonts. And there are so many people that I'm indebted to for their work building these tools, mostly Python-based tools that make these fonts possible. Two that I want to mention in particular are Joost van Rossum and Frederik Berlan. And if that last name Van Rossum looks familiar to you, yeah, he's Guido's brother. So it's a
type designer.
Yeah, these are both type designers. They're just like me. They're type designers who also code. They just code a lot better than I do. But yeah, and by the way, their names are in fonts that they've designed. That's Joost left hand. That's his left-handed writing. And Frederik's is a font he designed for Drawbot, which is what I'm about to talk to you about. Because yeah, these two guys are the maintainers of Drawbot. Which is a fun app for just learning code and making shapes with code. Actually, this goofy icon that you see animating in front of you was also created in Drawbot. So, I mean, it's nice that they eat their own dog food at least. But yeah, so this is kind of what it looks like. The interface is pretty simple. You have kind of a spot to code, a spot to see the results of the code, the canvas, and a console where it shows you your tracebacks and print statements and whatever else you might want to see. Yeah, and I guess what I like about this interface is that it's really not changed a whole lot. This is Drawbot as of 15 years ago. And yeah, it's pretty much the same. So yeah, let's actually get into what Drawbot is. This is a text that I actually just ripped from their website. Drawbot is a powerful free application for macOS that invites you to write simple Python scripts to generate two-dimensional graphics. So let me break that down just to highlight a few things. When we say free, yeah, it's open source BSD license. When we say application, this is just essentially saying it is a library that you can import and run from the command line. You don't need to use the app, but there is an IDE, and the IDE is actually pretty nice. It's pretty handy. I use it a lot, so it's nice to have the flexibility of both things. For macOS, please don't leave this talk. Drawbot is not cross-platform yet. But there are things where it's being worked on. There are other ways to do this kind of thing in a cross-platform environment. Part of the reason for this is that Drawbot relies a lot on core text, a lot of the Apple libraries for shaping text and justifying paragraphs and all that stuff. And so it's just because it's so intertwined with that, it's very difficult to replicate it outside of the Mac environment. I mean, it is kind of Drawbot's Achilles heel, but in a way, it's those core text libraries are also its power. So yeah, I'll talk about this more as we go on. That invites you to write simple. Yeah, Drawbot is all about kind of like simplicity in your code. It's not meant for really complex stuff, although it can get pretty complex. Because, I mean, it was originally designed as a teaching tool. And I think it's a great way to learn Python because you get a lot of bang for your buck. And by buck, I don't necessarily mean money because it's free, but just in terms of like being able to write relatively little code and get really nice results and really flexible results. And also just, yeah, being able to do a lot with a little in terms of knowledge. I teach this Drawbot course, and I mean, we don't even get into writing classes or object types. We're really just dealing with very simple things, functions, functions. Yeah, pretty much we just use a lot of functions. But I mean, so yeah, it is really simple, but there's all this potential. I mean, I kind of know what I as a graphic designer can do with Drawbot, so I'm like especially curious with what all of you with much Python experience could do with this tool. Let's see, what else do I want to say? I think the last thing I want to say is two-dimensional graphics. So yeah, this is not like a 3D design program. This is not, yeah, it's really meant for graphic design. It's just about shape, text, and image. So what can it make? So essentially, you start off with a Python file, and Drawbot can export a whole bunch of things. Kind of the main format that it works with is PDF. So just by default, you're always exporting PDFs. But it can also do kind of your web-safe images, your PNG, your JPG, and your GIFs. And it can do some other image formats as well, like TIFFs or bitmaps, or ICNS is the Apple icon. So if you want to make a custom icon for one of your files, it can help you with that. It can also make movies, which is interesting and something I'll demo later on. And it can make SVG files, which is nice because it's nice to have vector graphics. I don't know if they're like the most of, it's not like the same as handwriting an SVG file, but it's I don't know, it's not bad. It's usable. It doesn't seem too bloated. Yeah. So it's kind of important to say that even though PDF is kind of the main thing Drawbot deals with, I wouldn't think about Drawbot as really like an API for getting at, or writing PDFs, right? I mean, like yes, it can do that, but like if you're really wanting to dig into PDFs, I mean, you're much better off using one of these libraries. And same thing with images. I mean, yes, Drawbot creates images, but it's not like an imaging library. If that distinction kind of makes any sense. It's more along the lines of something like processing. And I'm hoping there's some familiarity here with processing. Processing does have a Python version. The original is based on Java, and then there's also P5.js, which is the JavaScript variant. But this is kind of in the creative coding world, I guess. I put that in air quotes because I'm not sure if I can define what is creative coding and what's not creative coding. But yeah, it's about kind of drawing things with code, I guess. But I guess even if you're not familiar with processing, I think it's kind of worth maybe showing the differences, or just so you have a sense, because there are a lot of things that processing can do that Drawbot can't. And I think that showing that is helpful in kind of understanding what Drawbot is and where it can be useful. So for example, as we just talked about, processing is cross-platform. Drawbot is not. Processing is 2 and 3D. Drawbot is not, just 2D. Processing is interactive. Drawbot, by and large, is not. I mean, kind of your basic, I don't know, processing 101 is like use the mouse X and mouse Y variables and like, make something follow your cursor. Like that's kind of like a very basic script for processing. There's no following cursors in Drawbot. There's you don't really click around. There is a way to build little mini interfaces, which I can show you in the demo, but every single time you edit the interface, it just essentially just reruns the script. In processing parlance, it's Drawbot is all set up and no draw, if those functions make any sense to you. But yeah, so now let's kind of move on to things that are like just interesting differences. Processing is a huge community, right? There's a lot of extensions. There's a lot of tutorials. There's just like a ton out there. Drawbot is a relatively small community. It's been around for almost as long as processing has. I think it was started in 2003. So I mean, it's been around for a long time. But yeah, it's just kind of a smaller vibe. So I mean, there's definitely a forum where you can go and find information. There's it's all the sources on GitHub, and there are GitHub issues and discussion there. But there's not. It feels more knowable, right? It feels like there's a lot that I mean, like there's not like so much stuff that you're never going to know all of it or most of it. And yeah, it's kind of nice that I was able to ask Houston Frederick for that picture that I showed you of them, and just like that nice sense of small community. Let's see what else. Processing, or at least P5.js, you can really embed into websites, and you can really focus on creating interactive screen experiences. Drawbot is, in some ways, I mean, yes, you can create stuff for the screen, but what's really interesting about Drawbot is that it creates print-ready files. I mean, PDFs are like what professionals send to printers to like make design. So, I mean, it's really a just very different focus. I mean, yes, you can create animated GIFs from Drawbot and put those on the web, but Drawbot isn't really about the web. Processing is pixel-based. You're on a pixel grid. Your canvas is a certain number of pixels high. Drawbot, on the other hand, is vector-based. So essentially, everything is scalable. I mean, yes, you can put images in it, but when you make a shape, that shape can be scaled. And its quality can be preserved, which is interesting. Processing supports basic typography, whereas Drawbot, it has a real focus on advanced typography. And this is really a game changer for a font nerd like me, because it allows stuff that pretty much in what we're used to with graphic designers is working in InDesign with kind of this WYSIWYG setup where I can add ligatures to my font, or I can let's see, what else do I do in this little recording? Small, like true small caps, right, where I can make this text look a little fancier by using some of the advanced features of the font. These advanced features are not accessible, or not easily accessible through most coding platforms, but in Drawbot, they're really just part of it. This font is a variable font, so you can see I'm changing the shapes to make it narrower and italic. Here I'll change the size so it's more for display, and the weight. And yeah, so graphic designers are kind of used to working in this very like nudge, nudge, click, click environment, but the ability to manipulate text on a system level using code is really powerful. And to me, that's kind of the magic of Drawbot, is that it kind of bridges the gap between kind of creative coding, generative design, and kind of nuts and bolts graphic design. Kind of the stuff that graphic designers like me are doing every day. And actually, when I teach to graphic designers, what's really handy is to be able to show them, like, actually, Drawbot has functions that map directly to the tools in their toolbar in their Adobe apps. And so you can really almost like make a script by like kind of closing your eyes and narrating what you would do in the app to create a design. And yeah, I guess I just really appreciate that, like, Drawbot can do really mind-blowing kind of graphics. This is by Hanse van Helem and Jus van Rossum for the Lowlands. It's a music festival, I believe, in the Netherlands. And yeah, I mean, Drawbot can make these mind-bending things, but what's really cool is that each of these frames in this animation is a vector image that can be blown up and put on the side of the building. So that's actually exactly what they did. They created this entire identity using Drawbot graphics from the t-shirts, I think they had like hand stamps. They have like the digital graphics. They have the buildings. I mean, like, to me, this is like such a super impressive high level use, something that you could never do in Adobe products, right? I mean, like, you can never do just like clicking around endlessly. And I like that Drawbot can be so out there, but also so practical at the same time. I mean, I make my invoices with Drawbot. You know, just a very basic thing. You know, I just read from I use YAML, yet another markup language, but I mean, you could just as easily have your, you know, client data or whatever in a CSV or in a SQL database, whatever, what have you. And yeah, I just use it to spit out quick PDFs using my fonts the way I want to use them. So I like that Drawbot has that range. It can be so out there and also just like so boring. So yeah, let me show you a few projects that I've done and that others have done with Drawbot, just to kind of give you a sense of how folks are using it. This is, I kind of sunk my teeth into real world Drawbot use for the typographics conference. And so for the past 4 years, I've been using Drawbot to create name badges for them. So this is a perfect example where they have a brand and every year the brand changes, and I need to essentially, but yeah, I mean, like, they have like 600 something attendees. They don't want to be designing name badges for each of these folks, but they really want the brand to be part of every aspect, including the name badges. So we were able to just make a very simple Drawbot script that it essentially just resizes the fonts to so that everyone's name takes up the maximum space. It's like, you know, pretty simple, but like just a thing that would take you so long to do by hand. And I you know, maybe all of you are already thinking like, yeah, of course you would automate that and not do that by hand. But in graphic design, I really don't think that's the expectation. I think we're very much in a let's do things by hand mode. So you know, just the whole idea of like, oh yeah, well, why don't, you know, this is a easily automatable, repeatable thing that and you can get really nice visual results, you know, because you can train the program to just treat different name lengths differently, and, you know, just try out different arrangements until you get the best arrangement of everyone's name on the little name badge. So the next year we took things further, and you know, you can see how they implemented the identity. This is in Cooper Square in New York, but then also how we took that to the name badges, you know, so every attendee got a different color scheme, different borders around their name badge, and again, their names are just different sizes in order to kind of maximize the font size and use the space in the best way possible given the length of their name. The next year they actually started having me design the kind of like the speaker introduction slides with Drawbot. So this is essentially the same code as the name badges, but just with animation. This year was all about neon. So we looked at kind of old neon signs and, you know, how they would, you know, kind of sequence the on off modes of neon, you know, to kind of give different effects. So yeah, we were able to just kind of randomize. So every speaker got a unique kind of introduction slide. Next year was all about kind of inlines, and again, just very simple. And you know, it's kind of funny because like graphic design in some ways is about making things all look the same, but it's like when you have all this different content, it's kind of cool to see like how can the content force the design to be different. So in this year, we kind of took the outline of everyone's name in the font that was being used, and just kind of repeated it and repeated it and repeated it. So everyone just, yeah, like all of the shapes came from those words. And again, something that, would have been really difficult to do generatively, but was fairly easy to do with a script. Last year, because in 2020 we didn't have name badges, here we actually just used a variable font, random gradients, and with the variable font we were able to actually change the shapes of the letters so that everyone's name fit perfectly. So now it's not about maximizing the space and making the layout as best as we could. It was about actually just like changing the letter forms until they, like the name fit perfectly in that rectangle. Yeah, maybe that was a lot about typographics. Sorry about that. But yeah, this has been an ongoing project for me, and it's cool to kind of have the same script and to be able to refine it a little bit every year.
So David, in the chat, someone says link please, and I'm not sure exactly what they're want to link to.
Actually, you know what? This is worth me stopping the presentation for 2 seconds, because I actually I meant to share this before I started sharing. Oh, where's my mouse? There we go. I have a Git repo with all these slides. It has some of the links here.
Yeah.
So yeah, let me put this. Come back, Zoom. Thank you. Let me put this in the chat.
Great.
Awesome. Yeah, I meant to do that earlier. Sorry about that.
Cool.
And yeah, there should be links to all this stuff. Was there anything else?
No, that's good. There's a little bit of debate about whether Apple or Xerox first put fonts on computers, but we'll let that go.
I have nothing to say about that. Oh, actually, I kind of do have something to say about that. How cool are we with tangents?
We got time, probably.
I mean, okay. CERN. Oh, so I got to I got to work on fonts for the. Let me see if I can find it real quick. CERN World Wide Web. Recently, they created like at CERN, where the internet was invented, or the World Wide Web was invented. Sorry. Yeah. They created. They recreated the first experience of what it would be like to be on that next computer using the World Wide Web. And the fonts, they were trying to just use Helvetica or whatever, but the fonts weren't sufficiently jaggy. So I got to work with a couple designers there, Mark Bolton and Brian Suda, to create a bunch of super jaggy pixel fonts, essentially reviving the fonts as they appeared on the next machine. And nice. What year is this? I don't know. But yeah, this is a really fun project. And yeah, I guess I should put a link to this too. Yeah, there we go. But yeah, I like that sometimes the purpose of making fonts is to make text uglier. I think we definitely succeeded there.
Good work.
Thank you. Okay, back to the presentation. Okay, let's get that out of the way. Cool. So yeah, just other small things for a font conference. We made. I was working at Font Bureau, a Boston-based type foundry for a decade, and we made font trading cards with Drawbot, where we just accessing the font metadata and the font glyph data using the APIs I was talking about. We were just able to just extract. We were like, well, we have all this data within these font files. What can we do with them? So we made these trading cards that people, and every person, every attendee at the conference got different glyphs. And we were actually nerding out and playing, quiz games, try like, can you guess the font from the information from the stats on the right? Yeah, it was dorky. I also use Drawbot all the time, just professionally when I'm working on fonts. This is like when I'm proofing, right? If I want to quickly see the difference between two fonts, I can just do an overlay proof, or I use Drawbot to just generate proofing files to check spacing, to check kerning, the proximity of letters in the typeface. So yeah, it's just a great way to just like spit data onto pages. Yeah. Now let's get into kind of more, I don't know, professional uses maybe. This is a custom typeface by Jeremy Mickle and a custom Drawbot script by Andy Clymer, where the client, who is Adidas, wanted to have kind of this gradient effect, right? Where as you typed, the letters went from narrow to wide. And this is for an ad campaign, so you can see it on buildings and subway stops and everywhere. But I mean, doing this would have taken a bit of manual work. I mean, it's probably possible, but once you get into doing something for multiple languages and multiple sizes and settings, it's like you really don't want to be dealing with figuring out the interpolation gradient from of the narrowest to the widest. So yeah, he actually Andy built them just like a little UI. I believe the UI is using vanilla, which is kind of a wrapper of Cocoa, which is the macOS UI stuff. I'm sorry, I don't know a lot about this. But yeah, essentially just a way for the client to type in the text they wanted to gradientify and give them some controls, and then to just be able to save that image, which they can put right into their designs. I actually worked with the same designer, Andy Clymer, for the ICP, the International Center of Photography in Philadelphia. And they wanted to have a dynamic logo where their logo actually changed dimensions depending on kind of its placement. Different parts of the identity would have different logos. And so we created just very, very quickly this a little UI where, here, I'll just show that to you again. Where they could type in the exact width and height that they wanted the logo to appear, and then if you watch the white space will always stay the same. So it's not actually scaling that shape; it's actually redrawing the shape every time. And then if you're going to make it super small, maybe you'll increase the white space, and then they can just copy it to their clipboard, paste it right into their design app, and use it just like anything else. So by having this tool at their disposal, they were able to kind of incorporate the system of their brand into their designs. Yeah. A couple other fun examples. This is actually a Drawbot script that was distributed with a font. So when you buy this font called Hobo Rococo, it actually comes with this script for generating borders, because borders and fonts can be really tricky to type out because you've got corner pieces and side pieces and bottom pieces. And so yeah, just having a Drawbot script that just allows you to do it as simply as that is just kind of handy for designers. I love the simple elegance of this script, which is why I included it. This is Nina Stossinger's color combination script. It's essentially just like, hey, if it takes a list of colors and that just shows all the possible combinations. So when I'm, if I'm doing a design and I want to see which two colors in this scheme work well together, it's, like I would have spent hours doing this in Illustrator by hand, just copying and pasting squares and moving them around. But of course, why not just like have a script to see all the possibilities, all the permutations, like I should say. Just a couple more examples. This is, some people kind of get more into the math end of things. And this is Maurice Melier's, some of his animations based on, I think, work of mathematicians from earlier in the 20th century.
I think he's mostly working off of abstract art pieces and reproducing them programmatically in Drawbot.
Thank you. I appreciate that's a better way of putting it. Yes, and you're right. It's artists, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I just love the variety and stuff. And yeah, it's kind of mind-bendingly cool stuff. And yeah, I mean, like this is similar to stuff that you might see from other generative artists. People working in processing, or open frameworks, what have you. But yeah, it's just kind of cool to think that each one of these frames could be, is vector, could be used elsewhere and blown up and whatever. Similar to that, this is Daily Drawbot, which is a Tumblr started by Yus Van Rossum. And yeah, it's just like a lot of fun. And yeah, I mean, just messing with shapes, messing with text, kind of expressing mathematical equations. And I mean, honestly, I'm not very good with math, so I don't get how he does a lot of this, but this has been such a great resource and just an inspiration and seeing what's possible with this format. And I want to draw your attention, especially to this one, this kind of blob here, because, you know, I mean, he made these essentially just to play around, right? But there's a designer, Ajay Archer, who actually kind of saw this blob and got inspiration for it and actually used it for the identity of the Caribbean Mental Health Foundation. He's a designer from Trinidad, and you know, took the code that Use posted and customized it to work for his for this brand. And you can see it all, you know, from their publications to their presentations to their Instagram posts to their business cards, all kind of based on this blob. And to me, that kind of encapsulates like the kind of the mix of work and play that Drawbot is, that you can kind of do all this goofy stuff, but part of the fun of Drawbot is that like it doesn't take a lot to make a goofy thing into something serious and something usable and something versatile. Yeah, so that's kind of my Drawbot pitch. I want to show you a few related projects before I hop over and do the demo. The first is Drawbot Skia, and this is a work in progress. It was actually started quite recently, I believe earlier this year. And Used is making essentially a cross-platform version, which is really all, you know, we've needed it for a while. It's been the Achilles heel of Drawbot, so it's great to have this as an option. It's still very much, yeah, a lot of the text stuff is going to be really hard to replicate, but it does a lot. And yeah, it's based on the Skia graphics library, so it should work, I think, everywhere, or most places. I also want to mention Pagebot. You might remember I highlighted the word simple in my in the original description, and yeah, Drawbot doesn't really know a lot. I mean, Drawbot knows what a page is, but it doesn't really know like what a magazine is or what a book is or what a website is. You know, it doesn't have those kind of objects as part of it, right? It's just not part of the scope of that project. And so Pagebot is kind of a layer that sits on top of Drawbot that kind of gives that additional complexity. So the idea is that you can have kind of one set of content and be able to spit out a PDF, you know, a PDF for online, a print document, a website, all from the same original content. So this is a pretty ambitious project to be able to do that. But yeah, it's kind of cool that it all works on top of Drawbot, and you know, kind of gives you that additional complexity when you need it. Oh, and Pagebot, what I just showed you here, also has some cross-platform support using Flat, which is kind of a similar Python library, which you know, creates documents with little code. So yeah, so if you're looking for another cross-platform option, I believe this is worth looking into. I don't have a lot of experience with this myself. Finally, oh, there's the music. Give me one sec, I'll just talk about this for a second. Finally, a big Drawbot user is this guy, Rob Stenson, who recently created his own library called ColdType. And ColdType is, it's really about animation. So, and you can see it's about syncing shapes to sounds. So let me just show you this. So it's all about this. It has the same advanced typography that Drawbot has, but is no longer dealing with frame by frame animation. It's much more about creating cycles and systems, and yeah, as I said, mapping it to sounds. So for the next 20 or so seconds, I want you to see how he's implementing ColdType. This is a music video for the band Wolfpack. And yeah, you can see how the lyrics, how he's using Python to manipulate the type, and you know, not only matching it to the sounds, but also having it do its own thing. You can kind of see the text warp. I will warn Celtics fans that there is a Lakers jersey visible at part of this, so just be aware.
It is Boston Python.
Baby, got my bags, headed out to the street. Now you saved my life, it means everything. I love my baby, she's the best. She picks me up at LAX. I love my baby, she's
So yeah, I mean, I show you this just because it's fun, and I mean, I want to spend more time with this library just because I'm super curious how I can use it to create animations of my own fonts. But yeah, it's a thing that you can picture a person doing manually, spending hours in After Effects, timing those keyframes to the video, and it's cool that he scripted it instead. So yeah, about to jump over, but just real quick, kind of a quick overview of the kind of the main functions in Drawbot. We're dealing with kind of these 4 categories. We have stuff manipulating text, manipulating shapes, images, and then manipulating the canvas itself. So for text, I mean, pretty much stuff is drawn with the text function. There's also a text box function if you need the words to wrap. And then for more complex typesetting, there's an object type, which is formatted string. And this is kind of a pattern that you see with Drawbot, where you kind of have these very simple functions for quickly drawing text to the canvas, but also kind of a more complex object type where you can define an object before, in advance, and then draw it to the canvas later on, and giving you time to manipulate it in between. And yeah, it's nice that Drawbot has both, so you can kind of use things easily if you don't need to manipulate them, or you can set stuff up in advance and then draw it all at the end. For shapes, you have kind of your basic shapes: rectangle, oval, polygons to create kind of straight-sided shapes, and then lines and arcs to create straight lines and curves, and Bezier path, which is kind of the complex object type, which encapsulates all these things, where you can actually just draw, almost imagining that you're like a pen plotter, like one of those Axie draws, if you've seen those, where you can be like, move to, line to, curve to, you can have all that plotting in Drawbot without using an external library. For images, there's just a very basic image function, and then a way to kind of like an eyedropper to kind of query an image and get the pixel at a certain spot, and then an object, where you can define an image and then manipulate it, run a filter on it, for example, before drawing it to the canvas. And for canvas, there's just kind of moving around the canvas with translate. You can rotate the canvas, make it different sizes, skew it if you really want to. You can query the canvas for its width or height. And you can also kind of make graphic settings for the canvas. So say, hey, everything I want to draw from now on, I want it to have a certain fill color or a certain stroke around the object. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, I have this side to kind of tell you what I'm going to show you, because I'll demo all this stuff. But I like that I mean, to me, this is what makes Drawbot so learnable, is that you can fit all the main stuff into a single slide. With that, let's code. I guess before I do my demo, why don't I just shut my mouth for a second and see if there are any questions that you want to ask here before I get into the app itself.
I will point out that when you showed the letters bouncing to the music, one of the comments in the chat was, "Holy hell," all capitals.
I believe that's the correct response.
Any questions, comments, amazements? Anyone? We want to get to the code. I sense we want to get to the code. Let's go.
That's great. And so essentially, here's how I'll do this. I will demo stuff as long as you want me to. I'll kind of show you the main stuff. I have like a little bit of a plan, but if you want to see something demoed, if you're curious about something, shout it out. I mean, we can get totally more informal in this segment.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, with that, I'll just go to the code. I'm going to just give me 1 second to remember how Zoom works, because I'm going to get the chat up on my other screen, and then I will also. So if you see me looking off to the side, that's actually me looking at you. So don't be too upset. And yeah, these demos are going to follow. I will post the results of these demos also to that GitHub repo. So feel free to, and I have some supplemental files there that you're welcome to use or not use. My demo is going to be with the Drawbot app, but again, a lot of this stuff you'd be able to do via the command line installing Drawbot Skia. And both Drawbot and Drawbot Skia are available via pip, so they should be pretty easy to install. Okay, so here we are in Drawbot. Again, we kind of have our coding area. We have our canvas where we're going to draw stuff, and the output. So if I just do my there I just get a nice little output. Similarly, if I just say, hey, draw me a rectangle and put it at let's say x is 10, y is 10, the width is 100, height is 100. And every time I hit Command R a lot to just run the script. You can also just hit the button up here. I don't know how many of you are wanting to follow along or able to follow along if you don't have a Mac. But I figure I'll do my best to kind of show you a few of the app specific shortcuts, even if you end up using this library more as a command line tool. Because yeah, it is.
Mark from Brazil says hi.
Hi, Mark from Brazil.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for coming. Why did I? Oh, yeah, awesome. That's so nice to see you. I was scrolled up in the chat. That's
we've been working this out behind the scenes.
Awesome. No, that's exciting to have you here. So another fun shortcut, just while or actually before I do that, so it's worth pointing out a few things. In Drawbot, the origin point is at the lower left. So everything kind of stems from the lower left is the 0, 0 in the coordinate system. And then the other interesting thing is, I said this should be 100 wide and 100 high, but the question is 100 what? Because it can be pixels, but actually by default, if I were to export this as a PDF, this is 100 points. So it's actually using the same measurement as when you select like a 12-point font. And so, yeah, again, just going with the kind of typographic focus of this, of this environment. It is kind of nice.
Paper-centric mentality. Right?
Yeah, it is a paper-centric. It is paper-centric. I mean, I don't want to get into the whole print is dead thing, but and I do think it is kind of interesting to think about how some of what this is doing is bringing responsiveness and kind of systematic thinking into print design, which has traditionally been very, this is the thing we're making. We will make it like this, and so I like that Drawbot allows you to kind of have these kind of flexible system-wide thinking in that rigid environment. I don't know if that makes sense at all. Yeah, so yeah, points and lower left. You can also, Drawbot is not WYSIWYG. I'm dragging this, it's not doing anything, right? I mean, there's really nothing, like the only way to change over here is to manipulate the code over here. Actually, this is, for those using Macs, this is essentially just like a preview window if you're previewing a PDF. Yeah, so yeah, you can't really touch it at all. But there are some keyboard shortcuts to augment values. So if I, for example, click on this 10, and I can hold down my arrow keys, and I'm holding down Shift too, you can see how I can quickly augment my values. So and if I do 2 values, now I have X and Y with my up and down and left and right arrow keys. So you can get a little WYSIWYGness if you want by doing this, but still you are manipulating the code, and that is the only way to edit stuff. Cool. So let me I'll put this back in the bottom corner, put it back to 100 and 100. Oh, and you can also see that the default canvas size is 1,000 by 1,000. But yeah, so if I want to make this a different color, I can just say, hey, fill red, green, blue. And now it just accepts values between 1 and 0. This is confusing for a lot of designers because in Adobe apps, they use the RGB values between 0 and 255. But, my students always get kind of stopped up by that. But then, they get reminded that, oh wait, Drawbot is, Python is very good at math. So I can just say, hey, if I have, 150 divided by 255, I can just do that right in line, and it's easy enough. And again, this is not something that is mind-blowing for you, but trust me, when you have designers, then it's just a different way of thinking. And one of the pleasures of my class is kind of getting graphic designers into kind of a more programmatic way of thinking. Yeah, so, and then similarly, I can say, okay, let me give this a stroke. Here, we'll make this stroke red, and I can set a stroke width. And so I can say, okay, I want my stroke width to be 10 points. And yeah, it will draw the stroke, kind of evenly on the inside and the outside of the shape. Easy enough to change that shape. If I do an oval, there's an oval. Of course, drawing one shape is not super exciting. But once you start to put stuff in loops, it gets more fun. So just real quick, let me, I can say for y in range between 0 and the width, or actually I'm y, 0 and the height of the page. And then I can, say, I'll just have a variable called grid. So I'll say grid equals 100. And then I can say for x in, how would I type that right? Range 0 width grid. And now I can move all that stuff over. Command, brackets tabs you in and out really easily. Let's see, what am I doing? Yeah, and then now I can just say X and Y rather than 0 and 0. And now I can get a nice grid of shapes. Another fun thing I think for graphic designers, they aren't used to kind of incorporating randomness into their work, or just incorporating, in Photoshop and in Illustrator, in InDesign, you have full control over everything, right? So the idea of like seating control can be interesting for designers. So the idea that I can say fill, and just use the random function. Drawbot by default imports the random function, so you don't even have to get it from the random library. And now I can, every time I run the script, get a different result. Here, maybe I'll just remove that stroke so it's easier to see. That's a really novel thing for a graphic designer. And then to be able to take this and put it in another loop and to say, hey, for page in range 10. And so now I can just use that, tab that in, and use the new page function to create and give it a width and a height. I'll just stick with 1,000 and 1,000. To now I've made a multi-page document. So yeah, and then I can use this. There's a save image function where I can just say, I'll just save this to my desktop. Grid.pdf. Great. And then, or actually, wait. I should save all this stuff to the repo I made. So hang on one second. Let me open that up. Here, I'll save this document. Demo. So this is grid, and then I'll just save it as just the relative path of grid.pdf, and I can commit what I have so far. Grid fun. I honestly, I have no idea if anyone's following along, but in case that commit is useful to someone, there you have it. Back here. So yeah, I saved that as a PDF, and then I can open that up, just in any PDF viewer, and there it is. I can zoom in because it's all vector graphics. I can also open it up, if Zoom would let me, in Illustrator, and this is kind of where things get interesting, because now for a graphic designer, you can use Drawbot as a starting point, and then for the stuff you don't want to automate, then you can start to mess with it manually. So it's nice that you can kind of go back and forth between those modes of thinking. Again, I have no idea how relevant this is to any of you, but it's relevant to me. But yeah, so if I say, you notice that I didn't even specify, save format as PDF. I just said save image grid.pdf. So if I actually just change the extension and I say save grid.gif, all of a sudden, it just is smart enough to look at the extension and instead it gives me a GIF. So now each page becomes a frame in an animation. So it's the same syntax, nothing fancy to make it an animation. It's just saving it in an animated format. It knows to take pages and put them in a sequence. Yeah, and then say I want to. There is no background function, interestingly enough, but I mean it's easy enough just to say rect 00 width height, and then but I should put that after my new page. That's what I did wrong. After my new page, and now I can have a black background, and then I also don't get any transparency issues with the GIF. So yeah, that's like I'm essentially kind of running you through like I would spend an hour on that for my class, but because I don't have to teach you what a loop is. I can go a little bit faster, but I'm essentially just kind of showing you what I show graphic designers. Again, not expecting you to learn anything really about Python, but in case you're interested in learning tools or seeing how kind of non-programmers learn Python, or just kind of imagining how you could draw stuff and take the stuff that you do and express it visually, and get that very quick bang for your buck. I hope that this is helpful. Anything in the, okay.
We're loving it.
Well, yeah, awesome. Ned pointed out that 1 point. Oh, sorry. Did you say something?
I was just repeating what's in the chat.
Oh.
People are loving it.
Oh, awesome. So yeah, Ned said that 1 point is 1/72 of an inch. So often what I just do is I just create an inch variable, make it 72, and then if I want to say, okay, how about my page? I want to be 8.5 inches by 11 inches. Yes, that must be an integer. So yeah, I can, sorry. It's cooler when I do things right the first time. So yeah, now we have this going on a letter sheet. There's actually, Drawbot has a bunch of presets for page sizes. So rather than putting 8.5 by 11 in, I could just actually say letter with a capital, and it'll take that string and know that it's a letter or letter landscape. Will give me a a sideways sheet, A5 landscape. It accepts most paper sizes, so which can be kind of handy. Here, I'm going to stop sharing just for 1 second because I want to show you something. For my class, for my Python class, our kind of semester output is we actually create a book entirely with Drawbot. And so you can see this is the book. The cover, it's hard to show on video, but the cover is essentially just a randomly positioned projects from the students, which is actually, I don't know, it doesn't look bad. But just to kind of give you a sense of what people make. Some people deal with type and duplicating type. Some people deal with, this person made mountains, just kind of manipulating randomness and shapes and colors. Sorry, I just wanted to show you a couple more. This person just was about sequences and shapes intersecting with each other. Arrows, making patterns with arrows, mixing text and shape in insane ways, dealing with image stuff and portraits and halftones. You can see these are all circles, so making those grids just like I made for us, but then turning it into images. So yeah, you can see it's a range of, I keep on opening to the pages with their names on it. It's a range of stuff. So it's kind of fun to just kind of put this in front of graphic designers and see what they come up with. I want to be sensitive about time. I'm happy to keep demoing.
Let's see a demo with some type in it.
Yes, cool. Let's do it. So yeah, let me, here, I'll actually just keep this. So I'll go back to my letter page, and here, I'll just do a quick save as, and I'll say grid type. How would I spell that right? Yeah, so what I can do is I can maybe say like, this is a background, right? And I'm gonna put text into this. So I'm going to get rid of this pages loop, right? So I'm just going to deal with one page for now. And then I'm going to also stop saving. I often just comment out the last line and I just export the images when I need to. So now I'm back to just drawing one page. So now on, the later I draw in the script, the more is, like stuff gets overlaid. So I can just say, here, I'll make a variable for margins, and I'll just say, let's give it 1 inch margins. So I can say, and then I can say margin width, margin height, just doing a little math here for myself or actually I'll do that, I'm sorry. Margin width equals width minus margin times 2, because there's a margin on either side. Margin height equals height times, or minus margin times 2, because there's margin on top and bottom as well. And now I can draw, I'll make a white rectangle. I'll fill one is white in RGB land. Oh, by the way, there are also functions for CMYK for print folks. You can put in print colors as well. Rect, and I can say margin width, margin height. So now I've just created a nice little inset where I can set some type. So now I can essentially have an inner width as well, where I'm now applying the margin again. Margin width minus margin times 2, margin height equals, sorry for all this.
You want inner height on that line.
What?
Inner height on that line.
Oh, thank you. Height minus margin times 2. And now I can essentially just make a text box. I've provided some text and you can just, yeah, so first I'll just say, hello world, and just give it, I'll put it at the margin, and it's maybe there, but super small. Oh, and it's white is what it is. That's the problem. Fill is 0. There's my hello world down there. And I can, there are functions like font size 30, font, I don't know, courier new, whatever. And it'll use any font that you have installed, or you can actually point it at a font file. You can provide it with a path or a name. It accepts either. You can actually, yeah, there's a function called installed fonts, where I can say my fonts equals installed fonts, and then I can say I'll just from random import choice, and I can say font is choice my fonts, and now I can have it do a random font that I have installed every single time. Not super exciting, but just showing you that you can access your font menu programmatically through this. Of course, the issue here is that we're down here at the bottom corner. So say I want to deal with more text. It's probably better to use a text box, where rather than just giving it an XY position where to draw the text, I can just give it an XY width height, just like I give a rectangle. So if I,
by the way, David, someone suggests that you should use input for the font.
There are worse ideas out there. So yeah, why don't I do that? Also, I lost my chat, I realized. Sorry.
I'll keep reading.
Managing Zoom I feel like I should be good at this by now. Wait, where'd it go?
2020 has been difficult.
All right, well, here, chat, come back to me. Cool, chat's back. Sure, so yeah, for now, why don't I use input for the font? Let's see if I can remember the actual name. Input mono narrow light. And I will change the font in a second. Oh, nope, not quite. Input mono narrow light, like that. Yeah, okay, fine. So yeah, it only accepts some names. And again, that's where you can use the installed fonts function to find the name. So yeah, I'll use a text box instead, and I can flow in text. Since Great Gatsby was just put in the public domain, I've included a little bit of Great Gatsby in the repo and in an assets folder. So if I were to just So I could just say, how do you open a file anymore? With open
Yep.
assets, Gatsby short, I believe is what I called it. I'll read that as text file, and then you know, my and then I always have to remember, don't use the variable text because text is a built-in function in Drawbot. My text is text file.read. And now if I just flow in my text, oh yeah, how about I encoding equals UTF-8. Cool, so there's my text down there. Again, not very helpful to have it down there, so why don't I put it in a text box? So now I can say my text, and I'll set it margin times 2, because I want to be 2 margins in, and then inner width, inner height. Okay, so maybe I was a little ambitious with the margins there, but now I can just, you know, I can take it. So right now it's at 72, but I can just take that value down and just very dynamically see my results. Of course, I have a lot more text on this page than I have space. So the nice thing about the text box function is that it'll actually return the overflow text. So I can just keep on redefining my text. And I could, okay, this is dangerous because I'm going to use a while loop, but I can say while my text, and I hope I don't crash everything, because the nice thing about a Python built app is that when Python stops working, it doesn't, it stops working. So I can say while my text, and I believe, and then now I can put in this, go back here, okay. Copy out all this stuff, all my page setup, my background setup stuff.
Define a function. Never mind. Go do what you're gonna do.
Oh yeah, you could do it as a function. Yeah, I'm a def page setup. I mean, whatever. And now I can just go down here, page setup. And now, okay, so that's interesting. Okay, cool. It's because of this rectangle stuff. So the fill one I got to take down. Okay.
All right.
Go ahead.
It's going to get kind of fiddly to get this to actually work, but I think we get the sense of it.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to show you one other thing, but I mean,
okay.
if this is as good as it gets, that's fine with me.
No, this is very impressive. You're making a whole book before our eyes.
Yeah, almost. Where's my, but I got, okay, and then I'm gonna do fill is 0. Okay, so there's my book. I got the right pagination. I don't have the right layout anymore. I think, because all these variables are defined before. Yeah, see, that's tricky. So I'll just move these variables. So these variables get continuously redefined, a little bit sloppy, but whatever.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, I've also lost my font somehow. Oh yeah, because it's up here before the page. Every time you do a new page, the styling gets reset. So if I move this down, now I have a font. And then the nice thing is, as I augment the font size, I think by default it's maybe 12, or no, I guess it's 10. But as I do that, it will repaginate the book, and I will always get as many pages as I need to complete the book.
Impressive.
Yeah. Here, let me answer this question about cold type.
Yeah. Cool.
Let me position my thing so I can actually read it. Was that processing the audio signal somehow? Okay, so I believe, I'm not sure how Rob did it. Here, let me show you the cold type docs. I believe that there was some manual work in finding the points in the video where stuff needed to happen. So I didn't want to imply that it's all automated. However, cold type does have some processing for MIDI. Let me see, I think it's under tutorials, dealing with MIDI. So yeah, it might have been that he actually had a MIDI version of the song that he was able to actually use the signals of the different notes of the different parts of the
I remember reading about this library once a while back, and I don't remember the details, but it does use the audio to help control the animation. It can find the beat, for instance, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it can find the beat of any audio or just the or just MIDI files. But you're saying it could
Read
be,
in the chat found the wolfbach.py file that it might have actually been using.
yeah. So yeah, this is using a MIDI, which
Right.
is
And they're at line 27 for note in organ.notes.
yeah.
Wow.
Well, I mean, like that's the beauty of MIDI is that like
No.
essentially it's like the sheet music is
Yeah.
encapsulated in the file.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know, you know, with an actual performance like what we saw in that video.
Sure.
That's a good question for Rob if he used something like this or if he just did it manually. I don't know. Someone said type on a circle. I am not sure I know how to do that, or at least I couldn't demo it in a short amount of time.
Well, we've got two people asking about how you fit the text into the name tags.
Oh, perfect. I'd be happy to show that. Yeah, so here, I'll just, if anyone is following along, here's my panicked commit message. I don't know how to spell panicked. There you go. Just so it's quickly there. So yeah, for as far as fitting text goes, that's something Drawbot is really good at. What's the best way? Here, I guess I can just use that. I'll just copy in that Gatsby file. And then we can we can say, I don't know, words equals my text split space. I just want to make sure I'm not like doing something processor intensive here.
That's good. Would be good.
Oh, I didn't say this yet. Name resizing. As far as the type on a circle thing, it's definitely possible to do stuff, but you might actually have to get into figuring out like the radius of a shape and then setting each letter. Like I don't know if there's a type on the circle tool. I'd have to think about that though. I could be wrong. Okay, so we have some words. I'll just go for word in words, and then I'll you know, and I'll just make a little iterative thing there for enumerate words. If there's a better way to do this, this is always what I do if I want to break a loop. Say for if I is greater than 10, let's say we'll just break it.
Sure.
So that way we have 10 words. And then so let's say we want to resize all these words to fit the same width. There's a text size function where essentially you can do a dress rehearsal for setting text. So if I up here I'll define my font. I'll use sure, input mono narrow light. I think that's what I did last time. And then the font size, just so actually maybe what I should do. Fun.
Okay. Cheating to use a monospaced font.
Oh, totally. Well, actually, why don't I use the font that I provided in the repo? I put a testing version of one of my variable fonts on there. So yeah, I can just it's just assets and then and yeah, again, it accepts a path to a font file and it'll treat it just like an installed font. Let's see. So so now let me just for now just set all of these word and then 0, 0. This is going to be a pain because it's going to put them each on it's going to overlap them.
You've got I you can use to space them vertically.
Yeah, good call. So I can say or my font size. I'll just give it 30, and then I can set the font or font size is my font size, and then every single time I can translate up by I times font size. No, just font size. So and by translating, I don't actually. Maybe I should explain this. Isn't like something I did.
You want my font size there, not font.
Oh, totally. Thank you. See, wow. What's it like? I mean, well, yeah, like it takes me a long time to know this or to figure this stuff out. Yeah, so translate, by the way, you actually are moving your 0, 0 state. So using a function like translate or rotate. I mean, if I said rotate, I could, would that work? Yeah, I mean, you can see that every time I iterate through the loop, I rotate 1 degree. And so it's essentially like, before drawing text in the coordinate system, you're kind of like moving around the page like this, but using translate and scale and stuff, now the page is moving around you, if that distinction makes any sense. So, I'm still drawing this text at 0, 0, but every single time I iterate through and I translate up, now I'm starting at the bottom and just drawing things going up. Cool. So now I just need to figure out a different font size for each of these. So what I can do is I can, I guess what I'll do is I'll make my font size 1. And I'm going to do a little dress rehearsal where I can say text size, and I know it accepts a X and Y value. So I can just, what's the word, breaking the apart? There's a Python word for this, isn't there? Unpacking.
Width and height.
Yeah, I'm unpacking the width and height. Thank you. And I can and then I can have my word, text size word. So I have a width and height. And now I know that this is what now I have this width. I know that that's the width at 1 point. And then I can actually use my font size. So rather than, I guess I can just, no, I shouldn't redefine it. Display font size. I'm bad at variable names. This should be, say, the width of the canvas divided by the width of the thing. Well, let's just, I mean, this is a perfect, yeah. This is a perfect, because you have this immediate visual response. Rather than actually understanding math or how things work, I can simply just, see what happens.
Right, but you set the font. You have to use it to set the font size first.
Yes, you're absolutely right. Thank you. Font size. So I have my dress rehearsal. I get the thing, and then I reset the font size. I draw it, and I augment by that font size. Oh boy, too big. Let's not do the width of the page. Let's just do like 50 points wide. Okay. That more or less did it. The in is really big. I have to think about that. It might be is it counting white? Not sure what's happening with that in. Well, let me just, what if I do it twice as? Yeah, same thing. Interesting. Okay.
But that gives us the sense of it, at least.
Yeah, it gives you the sense of it.
There is a mystery there about that first word.
Yeah, I'm wondering, I was like thinking, like, is the word space a part of these? But not the way I split it. Yeah, I'd have to think about that a little bit more. Yeah.
Well, anyway.
Sorry, say that again.
I'm curious about it too, but I don't bet we're not going to get to it to figure that out.
Yeah, I know. Probably not tonight.
Are there other questions for David? There's been a lot of stuff flying by that maybe is not in our normal day-to-day domains. Pre asks if you're on socials for people to follow.
Yes, I am everywhere most places. DJRRB. That's just my initials, David Jonathan Ross, and root beer, my favorite drink, or at least my favorite drink when I was in middle school, and used this for my AOL Instant Messenger screen name.
David's been in tech for a long time, as you can tell by the fact that he owns a 3-letter domain name.
I bought that from someone while in middle school, around the time that I came up with that screen name. I did it in exchange for a Flash website. So actually no money changed hands for that domain, but I built him an entirely Flash website. And it actually, the name of the business had the word e-commerce in it, if that dates it.
Very good. That does date it. I have loved seeing all this stuff. This has been great. And I would love to know if people build other things like this. I've written some Python that draws things. I didn't use Drawbot for it. My latest blog post used Pycairo, which you had on one of your slides, to do SVG and ping out to the browser. But I didn't know that trick about using arrow keys to dynamically change the numbers in Drawbot. That is some very sexy stuff.
Yeah, a little bit of WYSIWYG flavor.
Yeah, no, but that's exactly what you need, because otherwise you're just guessing at where stuff should go. It's amazing. Thank you so much, David, for doing this. I would love to talk more about type. I literally have a chunk of cold metal type here in my fingers, which is unusual these days. But that is not a Python type.
I have a press.
I don't. No, don't start showing me what you've got over there. You're gonna make me jealous. I'm gonna drive out there tomorrow to come see it or something. Thank you so much for doing this. Rick has got some too. Very nice.
I'm amazed that you have it within reach. That's really impressive. I'd have to go digging for mine.
Fun fact, Richard Landau and David Gebe and I worked together at Digital Equipment Corporation on PostScript printers. So we have some old print technology here on screen as it is anyway. Anyway, thank you very much. It turns out we had people here from Mexico and from Brazil. I didn't realize. So when you asked, is David on social media? Yes, enough that he tweeted this morning and got people from around the globe to come and attend this talk. So yes, he's on social media.
I should point out Drawbot is also on social media. I just pasted in a link to their Twitter if you want to kind of follow Drawbot projects.
Yeah. So thank you so much. I hope people have been inspired. We're going to have a project night soon. Again, it's not scheduled yet, but probably in about 2 weeks, and maybe we'll get some more chat going about these topics. I think that would be a great thing to see happen. As usual, I am interested in other topics that people want to talk about. You do not have to be an expert. You do not have to be a world-renowned type designer. You do not have to be the programmer that built the thing that you're talking about. Anything that interests you probably interests all the other people on this screen right now. Please get in touch with me if you have any inkling at all that you might ever possibly, sometimes maybe just a little bit want to be interested in doing a talk. Our February presentation night is going to be about debugging tools. I would love to have someone do a talk to add to the one we've already got. Get in touch with me. Find me on Slack, about.bostonpython.com/Slack. You'll find us there. Thanks for coming. Stay safe. We'll see you at the next event. Anyone can join the project nights. There's a question here about project nights. We often have a hardware table at project nights, which was much more interesting when it was the physical event. And I would see people lugging in shoeboxes full of junk and they'd wire it together and I'd have to think about fire extinguishers and stuff. But yes, project night is open to, if you are interested to come to project night, we are interested to have you. And you will find people who are interested in what you're interested in, guaranteed. Thanks so much, everyone. Thanks again, David. You've made my year so far. This has been the best evening of the year so far. It's going to be tough to top. Thanks for doing this.
Thank you again for having me. It's been a pleasure, and feel free to hit me up if you have any font stuff
right.
or Drawbot stuff you want to know about.
Okay.
I'm around.
Vice versa, if you want Python stuff.
Got to sign up for those office hours.
That's right. That's right. All right. See you all later.